fights. Jeff is going to be commentating, and I'll be helping him after we get done with this game. Enjoy the show.
All right, guys, welcome. You may have heard the dulcet audible chocolate of my voice a couple times the last couple of weeks. I'm Jeff Olson. I'm the event coordinator here at Mox Sporting House. For the interim, I'm joined by a good friend of mine, Garrett Swaneveld. He'll be helping me a little bit of the commentating. So go ahead and say hi, guys.
How's it going?
Yeah, there we go. We're big time streamers. Anyways, we've got a little bit of a setup going on. We've actually moved out into the primary retail space, so we're actually going to be streaming from the miniatures gaming room here at Mox Sporting House. And one of the cool things we're going to be doing tonight is they're sort of playing a little bit of a warm-up game here for the next hour or so, and then we have a monthly casual tournament called Monday Night Fights that will be taking place, and we'll be streaming the feature table from that tournament all evening long. So that should be about 3 games total when everything is said and done.
I'm choosing the victor right now because there's paint on that wall.
Yeah, the nice glare, the white primer glare.
The cards.
Yeah. So they are playing Extraction. It is an objective and a flag-oriented scenario. You can see those on the map, the orange markers.
I'm actually out.
You're done, so. All right, thank you, Eric.
Yeah.
Thank you, Eric. Big help.
No problem.
That means more of me in the frame here. Oh yeah, this is the Jeff show. So, we will have 2 flags. They're here off on the sides. Put some little circles around them real quick. These can be controlled and dominated for 1 point. So, beginning on the second player's second turn, if your Warcaster is in base contact with the flag and there is no contesting models within 4 inches, then you can score a point. Likewise, if you have a unit and a model from the unit is in base contact and the rest of the unit, assuming it is still over 50% of its unit strength, is alive and within 4 inches, then you can control it and score a point that way. Again, and the other thing is we have these objective markers here. Beginning on the second player's second turn, those models can be interacted with and attacked and destroyed, and you will score a point for destroying your opponent's objective. And they are 18 armor with 15 boxes, defense 5. So, not hard, but not easy to kill. I'm going to put up a little thing here, hopefully. But in the interim, until I actually have that up, on your left hand of the screen over here is Mr. Eric Vincent playing Haley 2 with Cygnar. And on the right is Miguel, who is playing Denegro 1 and Cryx. I'm going to attempt at some point to get little name tags up there so we know who's playing what and what casters are playing and who the player is. And we'll have that set up for Monday Night Fights this evening. If the map looks weird to you, it's just the nature of this board. That looks offset just because of the diagonal nature of the roads. So if it's bothering you, I understand, but it's just the way it is. This actually is set up totally correctly. We are featuring 8 pieces of terrain today, which is the recommended number of terrain available in the Steamroller packet. We have a hill here, sort of kidney bean shaped or L-shaped. We have a piece of rubble. Rubble provides cover and is difficult terrain while you're entirely inside it. We have a trench, which occupies this space here. It is the 5x3 circle. We have a kidney bean shaped forest here and a kidney bean shaped forest here. Then we have another hill here. We have a water feature. And last but not least, we have a wall. So a pretty good diversity of terrain types on the table. There's some line of sight blocking material. There's some things that are going to impede movement, things that are going to impair shooting. So this is a pretty good example of what you generally want to see in a tournament table. The other element of that is you always want to make sure when you have a tournament table that you almost always want some sort of line of sight blocking terrain somewhat predominantly featured in the middle of the table. That way you don't just have shooting armies taking off. And you'll notice sort of if you're following Warmachine competitively, that with the and we get the the traditional pre-game handshake. So they're about to start their first turn here, and we'll get to the action in just a moment. But let me finish this little comment. That with the addition of pre-measuring in Warmachine, people feel that shooting armies are a lot stronger than they were in second edition, where as a result of no pre-measuring, it was a lot more challenging to ensure that you were getting all of your shots off, at the right ranges, against the right targets, and all that sort of thing. Now, because you have pre-measuring, there's no questions about ensuring that your guys are staying at their max shooting range and being able to target what they want to gun down. So you really want to make sure that you have some sort of line of sight blocking terrain present on your table, because it does provide really interesting questions that shooting armies have to answer, and does give non-shooting armies some protection as they cross the field. So it's a little difficult to see. It's just the nature of the unpainted models of the moment. That will be a little bit corrected in the future once we kind of get this whole process going for streams in the future. But let's talk a little bit about the lists right now. Eric, who's on the left, and his army is at the top of the screen up here, is playing Haley 2. His army consists of a unit of Sword Knights. That's that unit of melee guys right there. They have pretty... Let's be fair, they're pretty below average stat line. They do have... I'm going to have to pull up the card here just to make sure in a second. Defensive line off the top of my head. Anyways, it's the one that allows them to get +2 defense when they're in base contact. And they also have flank friendly warjack. So what he's hoping for is to use them in conjunction with his jacks to hit above their weight class. Then he also has Old Rowdy here. He has, I can't quite see, I'm pretty sure if I recall, is that an Ironclad? I'll double check with him in a minute. Next to Rowdy. And I know he has Thorn now, but I'm not sure if he has him built, so it's either a Firefly or a Lancer. That can be getting close to the viewer. Then he has this big fat brick of Storm Lances and a variety of useful solos, like the Gun Mage Marksman or Rifleman right there in the center, and Haley and her squire off here behind the rubble. Miguel has taken his first turn, and he has, conversely, his big unit of heavy cav, the Bane Riders. He has his Colossal, the Kraken, which is no joke. He has an Arc Node, and a variety of support pieces as well, and Denegra, who's probably hiding in this vicinity somewhere. We'll see as she moves out onto the table exactly where she is. So for those of you who aren't super familiar with the lore of Warmachine, Haley and Denegra are actually sisters, twin sisters, and I'm not some big enthusiast of myself, so I'm going to sort of botch this story, but at some point a while ago, before they were born or as they were being born, there was a prophecy that the most powerful wizard in the world was going to be born, and so they said, oh, it's this person over in this cottage or whatever. And so the Cryx, the evil Scooby-Doo villains, ran over there and they killed the family and took the girl. And it turned out that they took who would become Denegra, but she was actually a twin sister. So it's that whole like, oh, it's the most powerful wizard. But there's two of them, together they make the whole Voltron, whoa! Or something. Anyways, so this is sort of like the quintessential poster child battle of Warmachine happening right now, Denegra versus Haley, the evil sister versus the good sister sort of thing. Haley 2 is generally regarded as one of the most, let's call it what it is. What's up, Constantine? She is the most powerful caster historically in the game of Warmachine, give or take some awkward meta shifts. And so her specific iteration that Eric is playing today, Haley 2, is by far the most powerful and constantly tweaked by Privateer Press / abused by the community version. Here, Miguel is tossing out his big Kraken unicorn cannon gun and just hoping for maybe, not sure lucky scatter, because I'm not sure it's going to scatter more than 6 inches. Her feat is particularly powerful. Her spell list is extremely strong. It just gives her a very complete package of abilities and tools to bring to the battlefield. Conversely, Denegra is the quintessential debuff caster. Her feat debuffs you. She has 2 different spells that debuff you. They all basically like stack or nominally once you go crazy with all of them. So she's just going to literally cripple the enemy army down into absolute nothingness, and the end result is your models all suck, and hers suck a lot less as a result. So Miguel's playing super aggressive, but he's kind of doing the right thing. He had this forest here, and as a result of the Bane Riders having Ghostly, he just kind of ran right through it. So if this was any other army, or an army that had no way to mitigate the the terrain and was going to be impaired, the placement of this terrain piece could be very detrimental and have a large impact on which side of the table you would choose, because depending on who wins the roll gets to dictate either going first or choosing their side of the table. So having this big forest here can play a big part into how you might choose your side of the table, or how you're going to deploy your troops. But all the Bane guys have Ghostly now, so they really don't care about terrain as far as moving through it. They do still have to see through it. So Miguel just mitigated this terrain piece by placing his Bane Riders over on this side of the table and advancing straight through it. And taking advantage of this water feature means that unless Eric can take it, also has Pathfinder available somewhere on his army, he's basically can't get across this terrain feature, meaning that Miguel gets the choice of how he's going to engage on this side of the table. So it's a good example of how the Bane Riders, their native ghostly ability. Oh, charge call. You're back. Gonna grab my laser and do a line of sight check for him real quick. Alrighty, so the question that came up is one regarding forests and how much you can see through them. In Warmachine, if you are inside of a forest or firing into a forest, you can only see 3 inches. So this is an imaginary line I'm drawing, but let's pretend that this line right here is 3 inches. If you have a model inside the touching the forest, but is outside the 3-inch line, you would not be able to shoot him. You can only see 3 inches into the forest. Conversely, if a forest is infinitesimally thin, this was a forest right there, that line I just drew, and you had a model on one side and I had a model on the other, and we weren't touching the forest at all, you actually can't see through it at all. But if a model is inside of a forest, you can see 3 inches into or out of it. So Eric's question was, if this rifleman moves into the forest, can he see Miguel's arc node? And that would be based on whether or not the base and the front leading edge of his base and the edge of the forest is less than 3 inches apart from each other. And I'm going to pull up real quick on my war room the card for the gunner, for the rifleman, because he has a couple useful abilities that we will chat about real fast. Grab him right here. So Arcane Tempest Rifleman has a range 14 gun. He's a marksman, so you choose which column you're going to damage. He can ignore stealth if he aims. He has reposition 3, which is useful for getting him to move up within his 14-inch gun range, and then taking the shot and then falling back behind something to provide cover out of the range of enemy guns. Probably what Eric would want to do is he has 3 different bullet types. Snipe, which gives him +4 range. Ward Breaker, which gives his gun blessed weapons. And last but not least, Deadly Shot, which is probably the weapon type that Eric would want to use in that situation. Instead of dealing a damage roll, you just inflict 3 points of damage. So, if you so as a POW 10 gun against an Armor 14 chassis, an average dice roll is a 7, which means he would deal 3 points of damage. Obviously, he could spike that dice roll and deal more than 3 damage by rolling 8 or 9 or anything up to a 12. However, he has an equal chance of rolling something less than a 7 and not dealing any damage or less than the 3 we just kind of talked about. So it's probably better to take that guaranteed 3 damage, especially if you can choose the column and you're trying to rip the arc node off of that bone jack. Sorry. You're trying to rip the arc node off that bone jack, which are usually pretty easy to get to as long as you can hit the columns that they're on, which is usually 3 and 4. Ooh, while I was sitting here, there was an update for Boardroom. Let's see what we get. It's a mystery, because I know that they updated the new Journeyman Warcasters this morning, so maybe they're fixing some bugs or something. Let's find out. Release notes. Nope, maybe nothing changed. Interesting. So, Eric is moving his Stormlances up. This guy's stuck in the terrain. I don't think he has any mitigation for it. What's up, Matt? You want to come and cast with me for a minute? Are you playing board games tonight, or what are you doing?
No, I just got off work.
Oh, you gonna play Monday Night Fights? Want to come and cast with me for a minute?
Sure.
I'm gonna invite the indelible Matt Shriok over here. Matt is a former employee of Monk's Boarding House. He now works for Coca-Cola. Yeah, I'm gonna scoot in there. Anyways, say hi to the people.
Hello, peoples.
All right, so Matt plays Warmachine. Matt plays Scorn. His current work schedule kind of precludes him from visiting us often and playing games with us, but he has played the game quite a bit. Maybe not quite as much Mark III as you would have liked, but
No, I
haven't had a chance to.
need to get back in there.
Anyways, I was just talking about. So, Matt is literally just walking in randomly off of work, and I invited him to sit down. So I'm going to fill you in on what's going on. Monday Night Fights this night. You know what that is.
Yes.
We're streaming it. We're doing a warm-up game here with Miguel and Eric. We're testing our whole setup that we've been doing for a couple weeks. Pretty cool. What do you think?
I like it.
Yeah. Anyways, so Miguel is playing Negra 1 and Eric is playing Haley 2. Right now they're just kind of getting going, and they're playing a 50-point game at the moment. Nothing too flashy going on. Both of them are still relatively new to the game, especially Eric, who's only been playing for really a month or two at this point, and Miguel, who's kind of had an on-again, off-again relationship with Warmachine. So now you've tried to get into Cygnar a couple times.
I'm actually revamping into it.
Okay.
So I'm actually excited to do Siege with like Triumph and some Storm Knights. I'm also wanting to do Trencher Army.
Okay.
Thought that'd be fun thematically. Nothing too seriousless with Cygnar.
Sure.
Just for fun at the moment.
And then you have a very large Scorn army,
Yes.
and you've only played a couple games with it, however,
And Mark III, yes.
but what are your initial thoughts?
On Scorn or Mark?
Sure.
Can't give too much. It feels, as I guess the community says, underpowered.
Okay.
I'm very hopeful for the future with the erratas coming out.
Mm-hmm.
Looking to get into it again with building just fun lists, not competitive at the moment. Just to get back into Mark III and get back in the mix.
So you're normally familiar with Cygnar then. I'm going to repeat Eric's list for your benefit as well as some of the viewers here, but he's got Sword Knights over here, and you were talking about Sword Knights, weren't you, with your Siege list?
Not Sword Knights, Storm Knights. So Storm, or I guess
Oh,
not Storm
the,
Knights, they're Storm Infantry.
Yeah. The Storm Guard and the Storm
Halberdier.
Blaze. Yeah. I'm with you now. So he's got Sword Knights. He has Storm Lances. Do you have Storm Lances? 'Cause they're super
Not
cool.
yet.
You should. They're really dumb. And then he's got Old Rowdy and another heavy that I don't recall, and Haley 2. So Storm Lances are real dumbo. And we saw a little bit of that last week. You had a question or a comment?
Oh no, I was just gonna say that I remember it wasn't Storm List. It was who was the new Warcaster who came out with the box? Major
Maddox.
Maddox.
Yeah.
With her.
Yeah. So Stormlances are real dumb. We saw a little bit of this last week. I'm going to repeat it for the viewers now. The amount of damage that they put out is pretty ridiculous, and the reason is they have one, they have an assault shot,
The electroleaping.
which electroleaps. We'll get to that in a second. As cavalry, if they make a press forward order and they base contact enemy model, they can take an impact. I called this trample last week because I'm just terrible at this game. An impact attack. And then once they get there, they swing with their weapon, which also has electroleap.
So a total of like 5 attacks.
So like this guy could like charge up here into a model, impact attack and kill that guy, make his assault shot against this guy, which electroleaps into another guy, and then complete his charge attack against another model in reach, which electroleaps to another guy, and kill like 5 models each individually. And that's a pretty like best case scenario because like there's a lot of dice rolling and like spacing required
with
for
the
that.
potential.
But the potential is there, and it's definitely far in excess to what almost any other heavy cavalry brings to the table. The possible exception is the Retribution of Syra Dawnguard Destros, but their rule layering is so complicated. As a nominal judge for this game, I actually can barely explain it to you. But they also have the potential to put up a lot of damage, but they're a little over-designed from a mechanic standpoint. So Miguel's moving is cracking up. So it's going to be interesting to see. I'm not sure what the... So they have a threat range of 8 plus 3 plus 2 is going to be 13 inches. So the question is whether or not this is 13 inches. If it is, then Miguel can probably get a couple of his Stormlances into the Kraken, and the Kraken's armor 19, and the Stormlances on charge are POW 15. So it's not going to do a lot, but it will do something, and the Kraken's going to be kind of stuck there. So it'll be interesting to see how Eric chooses to enforce that half of the table with those Stormlances, and if he's going to send them into the Kraken, or if he's going to feed them piecemeal to jam it up. So
What does Cygnar have for Jax?
so he's got Old Rowdy. Old Rowdy is a hell of a beater. He gets free runs, free charges. He's Mat 8. He's got a POW 18 hammer. He's got counter charge. He has retaliatory strike. He basically does it all. I don't remember what this guy is. In fact, I'm just going to walk over and find out real quick. And then he has either a Firefly or Thorn. Yeah, it's an Ironclad is what he has. So yeah, so this guy is an Ironclad, and this guy is a Firefly. And so this is probably a good example of where Eric's inexperience could kind of hurt him. He has a couple options, but the guys who really benefit from this Firefly are these Stormlances, because if they're shooting something with lightning that is within 5 inches of the Firefly, it's got the...
+2.
Yeah, the +2, the damage rolls. So, excuse me, suddenly those assault shots from the Stormlances are going to be like POW 14, which could put a couple extra pieces of chip damage into the Kraken, which is a thing worth doing. If you're in charge, the more damage you do, the better. So he's going to want to do like run. I guess he wouldn't run like that. Let's try this again. Let's be less bad at this. Run somewhere like this to get within this 5-inch band, so that once these guys charge in, they'll get the benefit of the Firefly lightning aura, whatever it's called. Let's find out while we're sitting here.
What are the units on the other side from Miguel?
Ionization is what the ability is called. Ooh, we are streaming. Didn't find that. Boop. We will fix that. Thank you, Fizzlestick. Yeah, Kung Fu. Maybe this is D&D. Maybe this is the next edition.